How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, today we're going to talk about change because corrections is evolving. It's changing, and either we're going to move with it or we are going to be left behind. So we're going to give some advice on what we could do as management to motivate change, but also what we need to do from the front line to be receptive towards that change and why we need to be receptive toward that change. This is not really a time to be resistant just to be resistant, because at the end of the day, the train's going to keep moving and we're going to be over here. So this is a time right now for us to be actively involved. Remember, corrections was operating on extremes at one point. At one point, it was strictly punitive, and then it became rehabilitative. And now we're trying to bring things in the middle. We're trying to take the two extremes and bring them in the middle and then move it out in a united fashion. This is the time where you must be involved, because if you are not involved, then this doesn't happen. It goes back to here. Okay, so again, extremes, moving to the middle. This is time for us to be invested, and then we move forward together. I'm going to have two guests on the show. We're going to talk about motivating change, if you will. I just want to go over my sponsors real quick. First sponsor is American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. It's a great online school, very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. So guys, if you want to bring experience back into the classroom, get these young minds right, please check out American Military University. It's a great opportunity to share some knowledge from people that actually have the experience of working behind that wall. We also have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. Guys, that's a great book right now. It's available on Amazon. Link to that's in the description. It's a book about inmate manipulation. It's used in training all across the country, if not international by now. It fills in that. And, maybe you don't have time to, really dig in deep and develop your own inmate manipulation course. This right here will help you get the training out there. Let's save some careers. And then we also have Lessons Learned While Working in a Prison, My Journey from Officer to Administration. Guys, this book is loaded with tons of nuggets, not just for myself, but it's supported by many people in the profession. I definitely would get that book as well. Just a lot of perspective going on there and just really good knowledge. It's a book I wish I had when I had started my career. And that book is also available on Amazon. Link to that is also in the description. Now, let me get my first friend on there. Russ, my brother. What's going on?
Hey there, Anthony. How's it going, sir?
Good, Russ. Do you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Not at all. My name is Russ Hamilton. I am a former and retired sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I'm also a former senior juvenile correctional officer. Currently, I work for a private company where we do rehabilitation and re-entry work at a local probation office and a local jail where I am the case manager.
And Russ, I know I kind of said this joke before, but the video went sideways. So I'm just going to say it again. Please pretend like it's the first time you hear it and give me a sympathy laugh. Basically, Russ, do you have a shirt that says, "I now can save everyone"? And then cue laugh. And joke is dead. Hey, Russ,
and then the joke is dead. Yes. No, I have no shirts like that in my wardrobe. And all the ones that you have are too small for me.
Well, that's true. That's true. You got about 2 feet on me. Hey, how's Keepers of Chaos?
Keepers of Chaos, we're going gangbusters. We, certainly look to try and make sure that we get the best of the best of the best in there. People who are really, focused on the profession and who really want to get in there and either learn, whether that's about history or content, or just do something where they feel that it's going to help them in their profession in some way, somehow.
Yes, and guys, by the way, Keepers of Chaos, a lot of good people in that group, open and mentoring and everything done for free. Just all you got to do is just say you have a concern and they will help you out immediately. We also have Joe Pomponio. What's up, Joe?
What's happening, gents?
Hey, Joe, you mind introducing yourself to our audience, please?
Absolutely. My name is Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant of 30 years with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, or the Texas Department of Corrections. And I'm also a retired sheriff's deputy and a panel member for Tier Talk, and also a moderator for Keepers of Chaos. And I'm pretty sure Russ has got him a set of tights with a cape in his closet. Don't let him fool you.
Yeah, Russ has changed. Russ has changed. I mean, you could tell he's changed because he asks us like, how can I help you all the time? Like before, it used to be copy. Now it's like I pick up the phone and you go, hey Russ, what's up? Hey, how can I help you? I mean, thought I was at the job, Gange. Thought I was at the job. What the fuck's up, bro?
Wow. Roger that.
It's all right. It happens, Russ. Hey, so the reason why we sometimes visit this topic is because first off, it's timely. This is the moment when things are happening. And it's important as well because obviously we need our front line to be invested in the change because at the end of the day, we want to move forward in a manner that really benefits us all. And we can't move forward in that fashion if we don't have intentional volunteering from the people that are in the front line. That means that, guys, I get that some may be mad because they don't quite understand where the change is. So maybe we should ask more questions and kind of fill out whatever those ambiguity may be. But having said that, your feelings isn't going to stop where it's going either. So as much as we want to fight and resist it, look where it's gotten us so far. It's kept us here. So what we got to do now is be trusted and get involved in the change, which means that when I come to the table, they see me as someone that's looking to provide a solution, an effort to move forward, and then we start getting our voices heard. But right now, every time Frontline goes to speak, a lot of people just think that you're just resisting just to resist because we have yet to build the trust in regards to helping us move in that direction. But I want to go with Russ first, and I want to talk about resisting. I mean, at this point, Russ, there is some resistance because there are going to be some people that are either there's a couple of reasons. They could be stuck to the old ways, or maybe they just don't want to move away from what's comfortable. But having said that, where we are now and what we've been doing, we're going this way. Would you advise for people to continue to be resistant in the hopes that we're going to fall back this other way? Or would you say, hey, listen, we got to be a part of this?
So let me just say that, resistance by itself doesn't do anything to necessarily move the chains forward or backward. I think that, if you're really invested in this profession like I was, like I am to this day, you have to be able to see where that balance is, where that balance can lead, and what you can do to continue to bolster the safety and security. There's never going to be any rehabilitation and reentry work done without safety and security. And I don't think it has to necessarily be this either or idea. But I think that that's the genesis of where that resistance comes from. I think that, we maybe don't want to think about, inmates can change. Maybe we want to think that maybe they shouldn't even be given the chance to change. But if we take on that as our platform as correctional officers, we're not going to have that place at the table. We need to have that place at the table so we can advocate for the best possible safety and security possible so that we can protect the public, so that we can protect each other, and so that we can protect the inmates. So I think that's a really important way to look at it. And we need to start doing more innovation so that, we can actually help out with the process. All the way along, though, I think, sticking to that safety and security and preaching that is overall good, but we have to be specific, we have to be intentional, and we have to be smart about it.
Yes, and I want to mention something too, guys. When we're looking at change, and obviously change is never easy, I like to use the word evolution. And the reason why is because I think when people try to implement change, it looks like it comes at the back end of a failure. And then we tend to be resistant to the change because of how it's coming into play, because it's like, okay, this is what you have done wrong, and this is where we got to go now. And of course, we're resistant to that because it's an attack on us. It's like, well, hey, you're saying we did this wrong, so of course we don't want to do that, because what does that say? It says we were doing something wrong. I like the word evolution, and the reason why, I know it's a play on words, but I think choosing evolution over change is like basically allowing ourselves to look backwards in an effort to make a positive step forward. So regardless of our failures and our successes, we wouldn't be where we're at if it wasn't for the trials and errors that we've done to get to that position. Now, if I was management, and I'll go to Joe on this, if I'm implementing change And again, I do like the word evolution, but granted, we may go back and forth, but understand the difference. To me, change it doesn't allow for that participation that got us to where we're going to be. It's just more like you got to change as opposed to let's evolve, which gives us a chance to look and grow from the bottom up. But if I was management and I had to implement, let's say, some change, whatever it is, the first thing I would do is, if I wanted to get the investment from the front line, is make it known to them that as we're doing this, in my explanation of where we're headed, and kind of like, I guess, the softer approach to corrections, that we haven't lost out on our core values and our sense of belief. So let's talk, Joe, and I'm probably going to ask Russ the same question after that. What are the core values that we have to remain connected to in order for us to start looking at moving forward in this new direction? What do you think are some of the core values that our custody staff need to hold on to the most?
Well, I mean, pretty much all of them, but the ones that ring out to me are integrity, commitment, and perseverance. You gotta think historically nationwide, we're at probably at the lowest staffing levels we've ever been, and we're trying to incorporate change at the same time. I myself never was a big person for change, but in order to incorporate change, in order to get the frontline staff to embrace change, you have to know how to sell it. You yourself have to believe in it. You have to have that vision, and in order to promote it positively, to your staff and get them on board, you have to have some sort of vision, to go along with the change, regardless of the extremes of one side to the other. The main goal is to push forward. And the only way we're going to push forward and gain momentum is with all our staff involved. And in order for that to happen, you got to know how to approach the issue. You got to know how to sell the issue, and you got to know how to incorporate it and back your people up while you're embracing this change. In order for everybody to get on board, they have to believe it just as much as you do. Everybody looks at the cons of change first instead of the pros. And I'll be the first to admit I was the first one to always look at the cons versus the pros first. And, once you take a deeper look at the pros versus the cons, you have a better leg to stand on in order to incorporate change and how you sell it to your folks. And, like I said, the ultimate goal is forward momentum. Once you gain momentum, nothing can stop you.
Joe, you said something I don't want to overlook, but I do want to get Russ's comment on the core values, but I want to get something that Joe said that mattered. When we talk about change, most people do tend to focus on the negative, and which is, to me, sometimes is a bad way of doing that, because, again, that makes sense why you're getting resistance, because there may be some people that may want to defend that negative. I think what you should be doing is, instead of looking for the negative, if you really want to create change that relates to that momentum that Joe just mentioned, you should be looking for what we call bright spots, things that are working, and then borrow that momentum to start pushing forward for more positive change. Because, again, if you're looking only for the negative, there's no momentum created. You're going to get a little bit of adversity there, because that people are going to be thinking like, yo, this is attack. This changes on the back end of some perceived failure that you believe we're doing wrong, as opposed to let's do it the right way. Let me take an honest attempt at looking at all the things that we're doing right. And let's see if I can go ahead and motivate change from momentum that's already being created in that direction. Because now you're getting the support. And again, that helps you out, because when you're first starting something new, it's good to get that support at the beginning, because instead of trying to go for the masses, go for the early adopters. Let them build some momentum for you so that you can go ahead and carry out a message that will be able to push back on some of that resistance that you're going to get right from the get-go. But Russ, a couple of things here. Russ, I wanted to talk about the core values, the core beliefs. So as we go through change, obviously there's going to be resistance, and sometimes people resist just to resist. But if you feel that there are certain core values, right, that you automatically think that if you're going to implement change and you decide to change on these core values, the resistance at that point is literally legit resistance. What are some of those core values that you believe should not be touched? And if so, you should be getting resistance.
Okay, well, I think that the proper way to look at this is really about, what our primary mission is. And our primary mission is one thing and one thing only, and that's safety of the public. So when we look at that, though, from the custody level and stuff, we are thinking, about the very tactical level of doing things, from the way we feed in the morning to who's going to yard and things like that. But if we step back a little bit and we look at what the big picture of that means, these guys, most of them are going to end up back in society. So how do we end up actually protecting society and the public from that? Well, obviously the real solution on that part of the equation is to be able to do something to mitigate the crimes that person was going to take place in, and the things that fuel that, like their desire for drugs and substances and alcohol and all of those things. So I think it's a matter of us trying to understand what our function is. Obviously, the thing that we're going to focus on the most is going to be that tactical level, safety and security within the immediate area. But can we branch out? Can we look at that in a bigger way so that we're trying to facilitate, this rehabilitation and this reentry work so that we have a much maybe less dangerous individual being put back out there? Or even if we don't think of them as being dangerous, maybe someone who's, not going to break in and steal your car stereo, someone who's going to, maybe quit using drugs. So I think being able to shift perspective and identify what it is that we're doing and always thinking about that public safety issue, but from the big picture standpoint, might make us feel like we have more to say at the table so that we can actually help spread that dynamic in a way that allows for maybe more of these guys to get involved in that. I mean, think of the things that we can do as far as gang suppression, for instance, by stopping the gangs from interfering, because they do it all the time. Gangs interfere with that rehabilitation and reentry dynamic all the time. What can we do about that? What can we do so that those that are involved in actually, stopping that rehabilitation, they get filtered out, they get sent somewhere else, maybe to a different facility, maybe to a different yard, and we're able to comb through these individuals and identify the ones that stand the best chance at, getting some help from these type of programs.
Well, I want to ask you another question, Russ, but let me lead into that real quick, and then I'll go to Joe. But I want to ask you something. So real quick, when I was custody, I was very specific to my function, and basically every other department was kind of on the outside. I would help them, but I was never really as invested in what they needed to get done. I was kind of just like facilitating their needs. Having said that, as I moved up and I started overseeing those departments and going beyond facilitating their needs, getting a better understanding of the work they do through the workers that do it, I felt the passion behind their work. And I also felt the fact that, if they believe in this work, then honestly, the work, it does matter, because again, they're believing it just as much as we believe in safety and security. They're believing in rehabilitation. I was like, well, you know what? I have to be able to stand up for them just as much as I have to stand up for custody, because this is a bigger world. When you start to move up, you're not responsible so much for a department, but rather responsible for the whole house. And when you start seeing it in that picture, everyone deserves equal treatment. Now, granted, safety and security is always going to be the canvas of the art that we paint. I'm not minimizing that, but you have to realize what we're painting on that canvas. It's a support. It's a picture of support to get those programs running. And I remember someone telling me, what's good about the program the providers and how it helps in safety and security is the last thing you want to manage is an inmate with no hope. And as much as that sounds like it's softer, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it really does make a lot of sense. At the end of the day, when you have inmates that feel like they have nothing to lose, then they become harder for us to control. And how do we control inmates? It's not a reward system. It's a loss first gain. So if you get inmates that have nothing to lose, then custody cannot maintain control, because even the reward system can continue the momentum. Maybe once in a while drop a little reward to keep the momentum going, but it does not correct the negative behavior. The negative behavior is only corrected through accountability and some level of loss, something that they're used to. And then if they're doing the right thing, then once in a while you can keep the momentum going. But I'll tell you right off the bat, rewards do not work initially to correct good behavior. Now, by the way, the reason why I'm saying all that is part of where we are headed. That's part of the change that's occurring, how we see and interact with the inmate population. One of the things is lifting the us versus them mentality. Like, not that I've ever had that, but us versus them. If we're walking around with an us versus them mentality with, let's say, custody versus the inmates, then how do we view the service providers? I mean, it's always been important to me. Like, if we hate the inmates and we believe that the inmates cannot change, then what are we honestly saying about the people that are passionate about their work, that are committed to that's what their job, that's what they're paid to do, and that's what they're called to do in most cases. But Russ, I wanted to ask you something though, Russ, real quick before I get to Joe. You've actually done, to some extent, that shift. You went from the custody side, so you have the background of safety and security, but now you're starting to look at the programming side. So I want to ask you, was there anything inside of you that had to switch gears, or were you already always on that momentum, but now you have more permission to be more involved?
So I would put it this way: is that in all of the roles that I've functioned in, I've always functioned within my prescribed role of what's required for that specific job title. So, when I was an officer, I was out there doing everything I could to identify gang members, to stop contraband, to put down riots. And then just from the supervisory point, the same thing I was doing pretty much as a sergeant. As I started to get into other parts of it after I initially retired and started getting into the juvenile side of things, juvenile corrections is much, much more oriented toward that rehabilitation side. So that's the point at which you have to step back and not ever compromise safety and security. But at the same time, you have to actually step up your game and try and provide a way for those youngsters, those individuals, to find a way out of the system, if at all possible. And the way you do that, though, is not by identifying on their level. It's not by talking to them and regaling them with stories about when you drank or did drugs, or you were a bad kid or anything like that. But it's a matter of, you want to bring them to your side. You want them to view you as a pro-social construct, and have them see the value in maintaining a pro-social lifestyle. And so I think that that's where sometimes some of these, and I probably shouldn't call them do-gooders, but I do, is they get lost in the weeds and they think that they're doing this for themselves because it makes them feel good, instead of realizing they're doing this because they've been hired to do a job and they're supposed to do it to the best of their abilities, because someone told them that I'll give you a paycheck for it. So I don't like to distill things down to that, but sometimes people get too caught up in the emotion of, oh, I'm making a difference. And instead what they're doing is they're being manipulated for the moment, so that individual can, maybe not have to test that day and get one more day's head start on their probation officer. Gotcha.
Yeah, you got me that time. Yeah, I saw a drop down and your finger go up. So yeah, I saw the mute drop down. I'm like, no, and then your finger, it was just perfect timing. Beautiful orchestrated between you and the mute. So good job, StreamYard and Russ. That was a beautiful moment. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. Now listen, so no, but you know what you said, Russ, is great, because I think when custody kind of helps facilitate that and serves, when we start recognizing that there's also a softer skill in dealing with the population, that doesn't mean that we negate whatever else needs to be done when it needs to be done. But during these interactions, there is a bit of softer skill that's needed, especially the communication side of it all. And I think what custody reminds us of is, at any moment, someone starts to stray and think that either they're doing it for themselves in a selfish perspective, or I'm doing it strictly for the inmate. Custody is there to always remind them you work for the agency. So don't don't eliminate that middle person, like Russ said. You know, custody's always there to remind you that you work for the agency. My biggest concern is if we as custody forget that. Now, at one point, as I progressed in my career, I used to come up with like the universal precaution, but I've noticed that sometimes that's used as an excuse to not move forward, because at the end of the day, we have to interact. You know, you cannot go in this world without interacting. I mean, so there's a good chance to create an impact and to be that, like he said, that role model or the social construct of what it is that we expect from individuals. I remember an interaction with an inmate a while back where same thing that Russ said. I felt that I didn't have to go down to her level to get her to where I felt she needed to be through a set of expectations that I had in regards to what I would expect of her in the unit I oversaw. And the funny thing is there was another officer that came up to me and said, there's no way you can connect to her because you don't know what it's like to live the life she's lived. And I said, okay, I whatever. But you know what? Sometimes I just want to get her to point B. That's it. You know what I mean? And I'm not here to go ahead and communicate her and compare lives here. That's not my job. And I'm not here to tell her, oh, my life was worse than yours and look at me. And no, I just want to say, hey, you have potential to do this. And these are my expectations of you because I know you can do that. So what is it about the past that you think I can't relate to that literally tells her, hey, you could do this? Because I remember that inmate being literally an inmate that did it every day, never came back, by the way. So she is definitely a model of someone that did the right thing, right? But the reason why she did the right thing, she said, Gangi, is because she was never led by expectations of her potential. She was always led by, well, it depends on where you want that potential to be, let's say. So it was basically not pro-social expectations that she would live up to. So here you are telling her, hey, you could do something better than that and actually be able to do this in a service to others. And all of a sudden this person, well, no one ever said I could do that before. You give her these expectations, she finds it within, she moves forward. And guess what? I don't really have to do all the time, enforce the rules. I found out with inmates, I enforce the rules as a last resort because, believe it or not, inmates don't want to do shit for everybody else. They want to do shit for themselves first. Expectation helps that. And then eventually they realize that what they're doing is technically for other people, the right thing. But if you kick in with the rules right away and that's all you're giving, the inmate's like, fuck the rules. I don't give a shit about the rules. I'm not doing shit for you. So find a way to motivate them from within and make the rules the last resort if there's no other option. But with that said, as we move forward in the change, that type of management skill, which may not have been valued yesterday, because I know when I was an officer, I was a communicator. I was always called to talk to inmates and do whatever it was. And that was a skill I loved, but it wasn't always loved for those gun-ho officers that just wanted to go in there and solve it and move forward. Not because they're aggressive, I'm not saying that, but they don't want to. They just want to solve the problem and let's move forward because we got shit to do. So, but sometimes I didn't mind communicating with inmate for a little bit and maybe getting some participation to move the inmate forward if there was time to do that. As I became a supervisor, the person with the communication skill is someone I've learned to value a lot. Because to me, if I can get someone to communicate and de-escalate and we're not doing extractions, we have two willing parties working together to get the inmate where they got to be, there's less liability there. And trust me, as you start to move up, every cell extraction got you standing on edge because you don't know what the outcome of that is going to be. But Joe, let me ask you a question, Joe. When it comes to like where we're going, what are some of the softer skills that may have gotten overlooked yesterday that are very important today?
Well, communication, one of them, because, you know, like you said, for the longest time, I was one of those officers and supervisors that just wanted to go in there and solve the problem. Regardless of whether if it's program or custody, the main goal in this is to promote some sort of positive behavior change in these offenders and lower the recidivism rate, and that's everybody's goal. Our goal is to make sure that they get out and don't come back. That's ultimately what we want. I came from a facility at one point that had what they call an inter-prison therapeutic community. And it was a 6-month program run by MTC. And, this was for offenders that were within, 6 months of them getting out, and they had to successfully complete this program in order to get their parole. If they didn't, they had to go back and do the remainder of their sentence. And one of the stipulations was that all of us staff had to go through this program. And, they treated us just like they would the offenders. And we went through a full week's worth of what, the offenders are actually going through in this class. And, I was the one that did not like change. And I was so adamant about it. My administration was taking bets on me on if I was going to get tossed out on the first or second day. But I completed the program, and as we got deeper into this thing, I just for curiosity, I went and sat in on one of the wings while the MTC program administrator was conducting the program. And to my surprise, I was really astonished as to how much participation they got from the offenders in order to get them to open up and actually communicate and talk about their family life, their social status, their upbringing, and indicators that led them to the behavior that got them convicted and incarcerated. So I think one of the things from the past that we didn't have versus what they do have now is definitely communication. I'll be the first one to say I didn't like the initial program. Overall, it was effective. It was very effective. I think our facility had a 96 or 97% success rate. So, that in itself says something about the program, regardless if it's free world or custody given the program. It's there, it's effective. And, I think it was probably one of the better tools they brought into the penitentiary versus the old school where they brought in outside preachers and stuff like that to come in and do Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Quest for Manhood. I actually think the free world program that was run by MTC was probably one of the better programs that they brought into the rehabilitation side of the penitentiary.
Yeah. And guys, by the way, if you notice what Joe was saying and kind of what we led into is that a little full circle here to some extent, but the softer skill. Now, by the way, we're not negating what's needed, but let's just talk about this part of the job because we all know we wear many hats. That's some of the bright spots that we could focus on as management, that if we were to commit people to trying to move forward with the change, instead of looking at what we're doing wrong, one of the first areas we could look at are people that have those skills in those softer areas of talent. And I believe that to be true. I believe good communication is great. Now you have officers right now, outside of having that good communication skill, they know how to deal with the inmates that have mental health concerns because they're working with the mental health team and they're really doing a very good control of probably some of the hardest units across the country because we have become pretty much the hub for people with major mental health concerns. But having said that, I think that would be one good thing. If I'm starting to create a vision or a mission statement that's pushing towards where we're headed and trying to make it a very collective effort to move forward, I think focusing on some of those softer skills, but balanced, because again, softer skills connected with our core beliefs and our core values. So you're bringing it up front and here's the good thing about that, guys. If you focus on that and connect to those core values, the good thing about that is that's evolution, because that's taking what's already working and elevating it. It's elevating up to that next level. And now we start moving in unison because there are people that are proud to have that skill of communicating. I mean, it's great because that was my gift. I'm not much of a fighter. I'm not. I mean, don't get me wrong. Doesn't mean I back down. I mean, our job, I've stepped up. But having said that, I didn't want to fight. If I could resolve the issue through communication, that's what I want to do. And guys, even I openly admit and saying I don't want to fight. That doesn't mean I didn't hold my ground when I gave an order. I just didn't want to fight. The inmate didn't need to know that, because if they came at me, of course I would have to do what I have to do. But that really was the last resort. I love my skill at communicating. I love the fact that at the end of the day, I was able to de-escalate something, and that was my reward. Now, some people may find the reward in a great takedown, and I get it. When it's needed, I get it. But I think that now we could also start shifting our perspective a little bit and start looking for that team effort where, yes, we got the takedown. Joe came in with the takedown, but that was only after we failed at doing this, or that's only because we didn't have time to employ this. So I want people to realize that the softer skills is a great way to start motivating change, because there's a lot of people in this profession that have those softer skills. Would you agree with that, Russ? Do you think that is a great way to start maybe recognizing that? Because here's my concern, Russ. I think for a while, people that had those talents and had those skills were afraid to step up and embrace that role because they felt that the role that was more of an aggressive role and that didn't fit in as much.
Yeah, your point is well taken. I think that that one of the things that we've seen, and we harken back to this over and over again, is, when we talked about, what used to happen when people would come in, and there was that whole, sink or swim mentality. And the only stroke that you learned, if it was, I only learned how to do the Australian crawl, which was, basically use of force. Okay. Well, that's all well and good. And there is a time and place for that. And I admire those who are the true knuckle draggers. And, they have something to really contribute. But I think that what we need to do is we need to be able to have everyone get involved at every level. When the physical is required, you should be able to do that. When the softer skills are required, you should be able to do that. But just deciding that, everyone is going to specialize the way they did that sink and swim back in the day, and I went through it, is just not the way it's going to be. And so, like I say, if we want that place at the table, if we want to be able to, have our say and get a little bit of that meal, we're going to have to find ways to branch out. And that's going to mean, smarter, stronger, more well-rounded correctional breed.
Right. And I want to mention something, guys. Check this out. So we're all on the same page right now. I did a poll the other day because part of embracing the new vision was I wanted to get the mindset of individuals. So as we're starting also to construct a survey, we're trying to hit 3 areas of the survey: connection to the job, commitment to the job, morale, right? So obviously people look at the job, they serve many functions. They serve many functions. Safety, everybody could like the job for their own reasons based on what it is that they do at the job, because there's so many different functions. But having said that, when you're trying to get people to relate to the vision, one of the visions is the inmate as a whole. So one of the questions I wanted to ask in the survey was, do you believe inmates can make a positive change? Very generalized question. So I got, out of 286 votes so far, I got 67% that say yes. Now think about that right now. Now, again, I don't know how many people are custody. I don't have that yet. But I know a big majority of my officers are of my followers are custody. I mean, it'll be more specific when I do it for the job. We'll denote the difference of that. That's just hard to do that on here. But with that said, that means that there are people right now that believe possibly that not only can inmates make a positive change, but there's some value towards that. I know that there were some officers for many years that when you ask them after they retired, hey, what do you remember the most, whatever it is, they'll go back and tell you an interaction they had with an inmate, but then apologize for having that interaction, even though they never broke a rule. It's like, oh, I told an inmate one day, how to get him back in school, blah, 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 but it wasn't on due or nothing. It's like, no one asked that. And then I started thinking like, well, wait a second. As we create this new vision, as we start moving forward, and by the way, when I say move forward, we take with us our core values and beliefs. Of course, I never said leave that behind, but we look to try to see how can that be applied to where we're heading. That's why we have to be invested in the move forward, because if we're not, our core values and beliefs get left behind. So the key is, let's take our core values and beliefs and find out how we invest that as we move forward. But here's the unique thing. When that person says that, and the average person that's custody may actually, every time they have a positive interaction, they quickly say, but we weren't too close. We weren't too close. I said, hey, guys, before we implement this crazy vision that we're going towards, which is basically sort of like the California model, the California model of rehabilitation and reentry. The question is, does custody know that they're allowed to be a part of that at a certain level. Because I have a feeling that sometimes the training in the academy may only train for this type of officer, and it may not train for the type of officer we're looking for. And the problem is if we could express the change to individuals, but if we put them into a culture that doesn't allow that, then the culture is going to absorb them automatically. They're not, it's just automatic. I mean, very rarely can someone resist that. And by the way, if they're going to resist it, they're probably going to leave the profession because it's wasted energy at that point. So I'm thinking the first thing is you got these officers that could have been trained in a certain way, and they figure that type of interaction, even positive, is just not the type of interaction for an officer. I think that's more of an old school mentality. I don't think that's really related to what we are now. But having said that, that mentality still exists even in some of the newer boots. So I'll go with Joe first, and I really want Russ on this as well. But do you feel that there's a lot of officers that may want to have that level of interaction, again, controlled? Even I still got to say controlled. It's just me, kind of doing what I said what the officers do, but controlled, because I know there will be some people that I'm like, oh, you're making it too soft. No, controlled. But do you think that people may have to tell them that, yes, that is part of the function, or is it not part of their function?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When we put them through the academy, we teach them how to be that kind of officer. And, we teach them about mental health aspects and other aspects of the job. But as far as rehabilitative programs, we really don't touch on that as much as we should. Therefore, the officers don't think they have any kind of input into the program, when in reality, they have a lot of input into the program. They're one of the common misconceptions is, like with this program that was at my facility when MTC came in, that MTC pretty much had all the control over the convicts regarding the program. And, when in fact, the staff had a lot of input into that program, and a lot of them really didn't know just how much input they were actually allowed to have into this program. So I think it's a real common misconception about how much they actually know they can do within a rehabilitative program and how much control they have with the program itself. The free world programs, such as MTC, they look to the custody staff for a lot of input for several reasons. One of them being mostly because, of the control situation. The second one is because they want them to have an input into the program to determine whether or not they can visually see a positive change in these offenders from the start of the program to the time, to the middle of the program, to the graduation of the program. Because these counselors come in, they don't know these inmates from Adam. Where they've been in our facility for a large number of years, and we know them, as good as anybody. So they lean to us for a lot of positive reactions and, what we visually see as the program evolves and continues on to its path to the graduation point. So, I agree, there's a lot of misconception amongst custody staff as to how much input they actually have, because they have a lot more input into the program than they think. And it's not, it's not always a physical aspect of it.
Right. And Russ, I got to get your comment on this too, Russ, because I have a feeling that we are going through a transition, right? I mean, there is the old school style, which we don't want to lose out on completely, because there's some skill there. There's some jailing that just cannot, I mean, literally, it's through experience that needs to be shared by example. So again, old school matters, but there is a transition where the old school meets with the new school, and then we kind of get that blended officer, that officer that, as I said, is in the middle. Now, remember I said the extremes, the extreme rehabilitation, the extreme safety and security, and then we start coming this way. And I think that's where we find the more balanced officer, the old school officer, because let me tell you something. Old school officers could throw it down, but they could communicate too. Let's not lie. They had skills in all areas. I mean, they could communicate, but they could also throw it down. But they got their respect because they were experts at both. They were. I mean, they. You want to fuck with me? Fuck with me. But we also can settle it just through words. What's up, brother? What's going on? And there was a finesse to that. There was a finesse to that. And I figure for some that are so resistant to where we're headed now that they decide just to back away from the change, the newer boots now are losing out on that type of officer that knew how to balance that. I think that, to me, I got a chance to work with some really good old school officers that when I came in 20 years ago, they were on their 24th year. So you're looking at officers that were, late 70s, old school, because it was a little old school then, and they had a finesse, they had a balance. And then I figure now when I look at what we have coming in now, and I compare that to that side, to the new boots of 2020s versus the older boots of what I've experienced, like the ones that probably came into the system around the 70s. Yeah, one lieutenant I know came in at 1974. I noticed there is a difference, but I also noticed somewhere along the line, there's a blend. And if we lose out on that older side, then we cannot successfully move forward with just that new boots of the 2020 era. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in this particular subject. One of the things is I think that it would be great to have everybody more on board, more online, and ready to try and move those chains along that rehabilitation road, as it were. I think, though, there's some natural reticence, though, on the part of a lot of people, including maybe some administrators and so forth, where we wonder, how much can the average officer handle with regards to this? And by that, I mean is, we always want to be careful, and we use that term over and over again, being careful to stay within our prescribed role. Well, part of our prescribed role, while it can be that rehabilitation road, as it were, also holds a danger to being manipulated, co-opted, or even corrupted. So I think that, it's one of those things that as we go down it, we need to address those training issues in order to be able to put that average officer at ease, letting them know what is acceptable. How can you help this inmate without it being, undue familiarity or not stepping out of your prescribed role, and what it is that you should be talking about and not talking about. And so I think that allaying some of those fears on both sides, with regards to the administrative side, who might be worried about, who can handle this new job that we've carved out, to those people who do want to step in, but they're reticent because they're not sure. So I hope that answers it.
No, it does. It does 100%. And I'm going to be honest with you, because I want to get to one more. There's one more part of this dialogue, but this kind of related to the front line. And but when we get to management, so we have to construct a vision statement or a mission statement that people can connect to. I mean, that's the key, right? I mean, and that's something that takes time and effort, and it's also has to be timely. I mean, people forget about that. People forget about the timely aspect. Like, you can't put an inspiring message during these times, to be honest with you, because, as much as you want to motivate the service to others, we're in survival mode right now. We don't care about others right now. We're more focused on ourselves and our families. So it's hard for us if we didn't come in with a purpose. It may be harder at this point to discover that, because we're in survival mode. I'm not saying it can't, because there are some strong people that will step up during these times and be redefined by the times. Because let's be honest, guys, warriors arise in battle, not when times are easy. But that's not everyone. So having said that, if I wanted to start bringing people aboard, it's harder to do it now. The message may not be as timely, because how can I put out a message about the importance of this side of corrections when right now I got people that are being overworked? I mean, it's very hard to implement that and to find motivation until we can handle that area of concern first. But having said that, outside of the timely concern, because that is important, guys, don't timing matters more than most people would think. It really matters more than most people would think. But with that said, I think our job as management is, if we do create a vision or a mission that people can relate to some extent, our job technically is to keep them in line with that. And what I mean by that is that they may come in and say, hey guys, I took this job because I believe that these are the things that I want to do, and I'm hoping it can be accomplished here. Again, maybe a greater service to other, whatever it is. Our job now is to have a mission statement and to translate that to where it connects to that person's want or that person's need. And I will tell you one thing, we have to go beyond people championing a vision, like that founder's mentality. Great book, love it, great book. I mean, but to be honest, it's corrections. It's hard for us to step in and say we own this system. That's hard for us to buy into that. But it's hard for us just to champion someone else's message. So there's two extremes when it comes to adopting some vision or mission. When it comes to change, there's two extremes. The one is the people that outright attack it. So that's a little bit lesser than someone that resists it or ignores it. I'm sorry, that's a bit more than someone that the highest level of resistance, to a vision or a mission is going to be somebody that outright attacks it. And believe it or not, when someone attacks a vision or a mission to someone who just champions it, so I'm just championing someone else's cause, I can easily, if I'm the one championing it, I may falter a little bit when someone goes to attack it. The extremes on that is, if I attack it, you got to put that person against someone who has invested in it, because now it's theirs. This is going beyond championing someone else's vision. This is, I've invested in this. So part of getting people to really align and go beyond that, but to start off by aligning with the vision and the mission, is get them invested in that change. So when there are people that come and attack it at any level, because in corrections it does get attacked, they defend it because of their investment. That is the greatest way to get some level of participation and want from the people on the front line to connect to a vision. Where if you're going to sit there and create a vision without their investment, you may get people that champion it, maybe, but it's still someone else's vision. It's not theirs, and they're not as invested as they could be. But if I'm getting attacked, but I'm into this vision, I've added it, I've created it, I'm making this my own, I'm going to fight back, and there's nothing you can do that's going to shake me, because I've invested in this. I've put time into this. So I think what we need to do is, if we're looking to create something, you got to find a way to get the people on the front line invested in it. Now, going to the front line real quick, and I'll go to Joe. That's why it's so important for you to be invested in it. Because if you're not invested in it, then you're not going to be able to defend it during these roughest of times. We are always attacked. And to be honest with you, I know that we're going through some changes, and most may not agree, or we're going through some rough times. Having said that, I got to say this again, we said in our last show, and Russ will pick up on this, but I'll go to Joe first. But Russ, I definitely want to get a little bit more of a comment on this. But be careful of those that you think are defending you while bastardizing the profession. Be careful of that. Because at the end of the day, I like to think there's hope. And at the end of the day, we're going to see the value behind this work after we get past survival mode, because there's value in this work, regardless if you've been overtime 20 days this week. I get it. You're pissed off, you're angry, and you have a right to be, but the work still has value. I know you had a rough week. I know you couldn't see the family, but the work still has value that you're doing. It's valuable work. And sometimes we're so willing to get caught up in our own feelings of hate because we got stuck for 20 days that when someone says correction sucks, it's a shitty profession, you go along with it because you got mad because you were mandated 20 times. That's not a good way to begin that defense, because at the end of the day, I'm upset that you got mandated for 20 days in a row, but that doesn't negate how valuable the work is you do. That's why you were mandated 20 days in a row, because you were needed. So again, it's hard for me to sell that now because I get it. We're in survival mode. So being mandated 20 times in a row, that pretty much sucks. But be careful of the people that step up, bastardize the profession, and then God forbid, or maybe one day things tend to get better. you've lost all value in what you're doing because you allowed this person to continue to bastardize this profession, this work that you do on the facade that they were doing it for you. And that's why I have a problem with certain channels that are up right now. They will bastardize this profession on the facade that they're helping out the officer, that they're helping out the individual. Yeah, but how you doing that by discrediting the work that's being done? I don't get that. I don't get that approach. I get that you want to defend guys working too much overtime. I get it. Let's defend that aspect. You know, it's too much overtime. But you don't defend the fact that the guy's working too much overtime by saying the work they do is shit. That's bullshit. But Joe, what's your thoughts on all that? There's a lot there. I just want to get your thoughts. That's something me and Russ touched on the other day, but I think it applies here.
Yeah, I mean, those who bastardize the profession, you know, at some point, or another, they're going to get themselves secluded. It's all good until it's not, and you know, at some point, the people around him or her who's been bastardizing the profession, you know, these people are going to wake up one day and go, you know what, I'm tired of listening to this. Instead of looking at, you know, I got mandated 20 times, but, you know, not only did I get a hell of a paycheck for being mandated 20 times, we made it 20 times without any operational difficulties. All of my coworkers went home safe that day. We all walked out of the gate healthy. When you promote negativity, you're going to breed negativity. The biggest thing you can do as a supervisor is learn how to implement compromise. If you can implement compromise amongst your staff, you'll make things go a lot better. You know, you'll slowly but surely bring them around to look at the pros versus the cons. I mean, we all know historically nationwide, we're so short staffed, we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. We know this, you know, and it's been this way for going on a year now, if not a little bit longer. You know, we know it sucks. You know, we know it's something that has to be done, but we need to quit focusing on the negative aspects of it, start looking at the positives. You know, yeah, I ran my facility short staffed, but you know what? We made it through with no operational difficulties. Everybody was safe. Nobody got hurt. You know, my staff is okay. The offender population's okay. You know, next week is a whole new week. You know, we redo it. You know, you can continue to bastardize the profession all you want to, but at some point people are going to quit listening to you because, you know, the negativity, you know, you can only take so much before you get turned off. And those people who continue to breed the negativity, at some point they're just going to seclude themselves out in left field and they're just going to quit listening to them. So, you know, bastardize all you want. You know, the rest of us are here for the positive change. We're here to gain the momentum back. We're here to help bring the staff back in. And, you know, for those of you who are out there bastardizing it, you're not helping the staffing situation by doing it. So quit.
And I'm going to tell you what, Joe, guys, another thing for management in regards to getting that people to accept where we're headed is you have to constantly battle to get the staff to see the positive, because people automatically go towards the negative. It's intentional to find the positive because it's easier to go to the negative. It is. So I think that's what good management does. Good leaders do is they step up and they shift people's focus. I think they create something positive and optimistic. And optimistic is based on realism, guys. A lot of people think that optimism is based on, it's not reality. No, it is. Optimism by definition is a realistic look at something positive in the future. And being positive doesn't mean you shift reality. It means you shift where you're looking. Because I know in corrections, there are positive things. You know, there are positive things. It's tough to see it when you got all the negatives. So I think good leaders help staff remain focused on where those positive moments are or those spots are, and then where there is that chance to keep fueling that realistic hope. I mean, and not generality, like, oh, don't worry, tomorrow will be better. Explain why you feel it's going to be better. Explain the directions we're going to make it better. Remember, guys, even with the vision and mission, it's more than just words. Me and Russ did a show a while ago about the context. Guys, the vision and mission has to be seen through the behaviors of what's being done every day. They're actionable. So when you see a vision and mission, someone should be able to read that and then look at the facility and see action and behaviors that relate to what it is being said in that vision and mission. Those vision and mission statements should be actionable behaviors, not some bullshit word just to say some bullshit word. The context comes from the behaviors that you see that someone could say, oh, yep, saw that word. Yep, saw that word. That played out. But again, it's a culture thing. I mean, it really is a culture thing, and connecting people to something that's greater in service. I mean, that's the key. And again, it's tough right now because of the times we're in. But I think part of the retention, I mean, yes, there's recruiting, yes, but part of the retention is keeping people focused on that. And I think another part of that comes from not generalized appreciation, but specific appreciation. And not overdone, but meaningful. Like, hey, Russ, I appreciate that search you did the other day on cell 12, man. That was a great job finding the knife. And, if we didn't find that knife, I'm sure that would have been used on his cellmate, as opposed to saying, hey, Russ, great job on your tours lately. Or, Russ, great job on coming in today. No, be more specific, be meaningful. Tell us why you appreciate it in regards to what did Russ do that helped someone else. And then Russ starts saying, well, maybe that overtime was worth it a little bit. Here I am so caught up in getting hit up every time. I forget how important it is the work that I do. And now my manager came in today and I was worried about getting overtime. And he came in and he didn't just say, thank you for coming in. He literally said, hey, if it wasn't for you doing that search on your overtime, this is the things that could have happened. It's specific appreciation. And the way you do that is by leadership, by slowly walking around among the crowd and getting to know what your people are doing that deserves some form of appreciation. I'm not talking about recognition. There's a difference. I'm talking about appreciation. Hey, Russ, we'll do the closing thoughts. Unless, Russ, you have any thoughts you want to say real quick before we get into the closing thoughts?
Yeah, I get this. This can kind of be my closing thought. I guess is that.
Wait. You want to go first on the closing thought, Russ? You want to go first on the closing? If
possible.
Okay, Joe, is that okay if Russ does the closing thought first?
I guess I'll let Russ make it this time.
Okay, Russ, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, now my closing thought train just ran off the track.
No, so
I'm going to get right back on it, and I'm going to show you just how on track I can be. All right. So, as I was about to say, it can be intoxicating to wear your outrage on your sleeve and to be, upset about everything that goes on in corrections, and to be always the one, shaking your finger, shaking your fist. And you know what? It's easy to get a lot of people to go along with that. Where people start losing it is sooner or later that runs out of any energy. The thing that I try and bring to Keepers of Chaos, the thing I try and bring to Tier Talk and all of the other forums that I'm on out there, is to provide actual value beyond some, rage at some generality out there about some hug a thug attitude that some administrator somewhere may or may not have. I want to bring, real training, real light to subjects, like staff safety and finding weapons and being able to talk about gangs and how you de-escalate situations and things just like the talk that we've been having for the past hour and 3 minutes right now. So, all of that energy that, some of these people bring to this thing, where they're only interested in focusing on the negative, it's easy to be a negative cheerleader. It's easy to pick up the pitchfork and the torch and march toward the castle and claim that you're going there to slay the monster. But in the end, all you're really doing is ignoring the parts of this profession that do need some bolstering and do need some attention. And that's why Keepers of Chaos and Tier Talk and others are so important, I feel.
No, I love that. And guys, in partnership with Russ is saying, we've always been doing our best to try to go along with where the profession is heading, because we know at the end of the day, if we're resistant, we're not helping you guys out any, because we need investment from you guys so we can all move forward as a team. So this is, again, just to motivate that dialogue to bring us from here to here. I like doing that. That's fun. I'm going to do that one more time because at 45, I can still do that. I don't know if I'm Russ's age, if that's possible. Hey, Joe, what do you got, Joe? What do you got?
Oh man, poor Russ.
Yeah,
We've been on him all night, man.
He showed off his forearms just now.
He went from Superman to drinking Ensure. I mean, what the hell?
Oh, Russ. Whoa, that was worse than mine. He fucking went after your kidneys.
Hey, I see that bottle of Geritol behind you there, Joe.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it.
Yo, his room is painted blue for the support of his favorite med.
That's it. The Thorazine shuffle, baby.
I'm talking about Viagra, but go ahead.
No, I ain't there yet, baby.
The blue pill. What do you got, Joe?
Part of the reason why I love, Tier Talk and Keepers of Chaos is the fact that, when I first signed on and started watching these channels, man, there was so much positivity in the message and the word that was getting out. Even though I'm retired and not associated with the profession anymore, my whole goal was the fact that I still had a lot left to offer, and I wanted to be a part of the team that could still help the younger leaders become better leaders and help the newer officers understand the new leaders better and offer tips and tricks in order to create a better harmony for them. And, for them to learn from my mistakes that I made along the way. One of the bigger things is, the negativity. At some point we've got to dam that wall up and start focusing in the opposite direction of positivity. We've got to find a way to get the staff back. We got to find a way to bring them in. We got to find a way to keep the morale up. We got to find a way to keep them motivated and intrigued in the job. And, the appreciation value, man, when I tell you the little things mean the most amongst the staff, Anthony kind of hit it on the head. You don't have to make a big dramatic scene over it, but I mean, just a few simple words, especially to the staff, that have been mandated and working all this overtime. And man, just walking into a turnout and telling these people how much you appreciate them and being sincere about it and showing the sincerity, not just saying it because words are just words until you prove it. Once you've established that kind of bond with your staff, a leader will never truly know what it is to have subordinates underneath them that will lead the charge for them without even having to say the word. So, appreciate your staff as much as you possibly can, because we're in, like I said, we've all said it before, we're in the most trying times ever. And, just take it from an old hand, who resisted change and was part of that older regime. You can promote that change. Ultimately, you're the one that's in charge of your own destiny. And, the way you change other people's lives and make that impact has a lot to do with your beliefs, your sincerity, and the way you conduct yourself. So, do it the right way. Promote that positive change, not just in the offender behavior, but I mean in the staff. Find the positivity to keep them moving forward. Don't go in there showing the negatives all the time, because, a lot of the times the staff base their reactions off of your delivery. So, try to be as positive about it as you can. Look at the pros versus the cons, and, help your folks when you can. Because, I mean, like Anthony said, the little things mean the most right now.
Yeah, and I want to mention something too. I know there's a lot of people that may watch this that believe that what we're saying is impossible. And I don't know. I mean, we've been doing this for many years, and maybe it is. I don't know. But I think what's good about it is if we strive for it, it gives us a destination that keeps us focused. I mean, okay, I don't want to be in a car where I don't know where I'm going. I don't, so maybe I'm willing to drive knowing that that's the end game, and wherever we get to, but at least I know what's in the process of that. We're progressing towards that. And I'm not going to reach it in my career. And I don't think it will ever be reached in a lifetime, because there's always going to be animosity There's always going to be things we cannot control that we're going to get frustrated over. And the funny thing is, it's only one moment in time, and how fast you can go backwards, and how slow it takes to move forward. But the problem is, I think the biggest concern is that, as you fall backwards, when you start to pick yourself up and start to move forward, you got to know where you're going each and every time. That's the key. What they call fail forward. You got to keep on knowing where you're going. I think it truly becomes a problem when you don't know where you're going, you don't know where you're headed, and then not only are you frustrated, but you're lost. I think that adds to the matter. I think that right now, our field, what we're doing right now is we're telling you it's okay for you to be frustrated, but it's not okay for you to be lost. Because when you're lost, you could be hopeless. And at that point here, who wants to work where they feel hopeless? So let us provide you some hope by giving you a destination that we hope to reach one day. And that's fair because I think it's realistic. And let's keep you from being lost. That's it. Keep you from being lost. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.